Hello, welcome back. I got this question from one of our subscribers who happens to be aware of the extensive testing that has been going on for decades in our online trading community. And he asks, what Forex trading strategy is working right now in 2020? And that's an excellent question, and I decided not only to demonstrate and show this very strategy that's working right now, but to also make this the most valuable video on this topic that you have ever watched on YouTube. So let's do it. Now, in order to make this the most valuable video that you have ever watched on the subject of Forex trading strategies, I'm going to ask you not to watch this passively, but to take an active participation in this process so that you can actually experience a breakthrough that changes your results in trading. So just relax and consider that we're working together as colleagues in this business. And if you need to stop the video to make a comment, feel free to do that so you can let me know if you got each step. And then if you have any questions, I'll be getting back to you on that. Okay, you ready? Have you ever experienced this? You've been using a trading strategy that previously had been working well, and then all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, it seems to just stop working. It seems to you like you're doing the exact same thing that you were doing before, and before it was working, and now it's not. And this is not for one trade, but it seems to stop working altogether for several trades in a row. Or maybe you discover that it never works for you reliably again, but before it was. People sometimes jump to the conclusion that the market has changed, and they need to stop using the strategies that were working before and instead find a new strategy that's working now and start using that. And then keep doing that, keep switching strategies every few months or so. As I show you now the strategy that is working in 2020 right now, you will be able to see for yourself that the market has not changed. The strategy that works keeps on working. And part of the strategy is knowing how to adapt to all market cycles and all market conditions. The key is to be able to read the market, whether it's in a trend or in a correction, and understanding the basics of wave subdivisions. This will always guide you and take you right to the next trade, which will mean that you will automatically go to the right time frame and enter in the right direction. If you ever had what seemed like a pretty good trading strategy stop working for you, I'm going to show you exactly what happened at that time and how to change that to get consistent results throughout all market conditions, and how you can stay one step ahead of this whole dilemma by knowing one extremely critical secret. For instance, if I look right here, this is gold versus the US dollar. This happens to be the weekly time frame, and this shape, this whole pattern that you see right here, is the standard classic shape that markets never stop making. It's so perfect that it belongs in a textbook to show this is exactly what markets do. Where during this entire time, going all the way back to August of 2018, has gold done anything unusual at all? It's been doing the exact classic pattern that we've always seen. You could take this pattern and go back and see it again in a chart from the 1930s. Or any time back in history, you would see the same thing. And we have charts, some of them are hand-drawn by people like W.D. Gann that go back all the way to soybeans of 1930s and charts of cotton and wheat and things like that, way back from 1919, hand-drawn on a chart. Plus, there's a fantastic little book called Beautiful Pictures by Robert Prechter that show all of these patterns from the present and back into the past. If I look at gold versus the euro on the weekly, it's even more perfect than gold versus the US dollar, and I'm constantly trading this. And I suppose you'd have to know what a classic shape is. There are people who are looking at charts every day for years and they don't know what a classic shape of a trend is. But if you have been focusing on that, you've been seeing them every single day of your life, and not just on the longer time. I can go right now to the 1 hour and I will see a perfect trend going down on the 1 hour. This is the perfect classic shape of a trend. What is the market doing that's different now? It's doing the exact same thing that it has been doing all throughout history, and it makes it so easy to trade for somebody who knows how to read this. It's not just on one pair, and it's not just on one time frame. It's everywhere. Here's the pound versus the yen. This part right here is the exact perfect shape of a trend. And then look at this perfect ABC and then a perfect reversal going back up again. It's just continually repeating the same cycles that we have known about for a long time. So the people who are confused about how to trade the market or thinking that the market is doing something different, what market are you talking about? Many people say that because of the proliferation of algorithmic trading, the market has changed because of that. And I'm looking at my charts and I'm thinking, what market are you talking about? Where is it changed? I gotta tell you that if you can read the market yourself, you will know that this is the dumbest thing you've ever heard in your life. If anyone ever says this, ask them for examples of specific places where the market has changed, and specifically how has it changed? Because I can tell you that the people who are saying this don't know what the market is doing now, and they don't know what it was doing before. I know because I see it on charts. It's just something that they say in ignorance and desperation to try to cover up the feelings of inadequacy they have about not being able to trade. I'm about to show you how you can see that the market right now is doing the exact same thing that it has been doing throughout history, and what strategy is working right now. So I used to believe that kind of nonsense myself until I learned to read the market myself, and that by reading the market, I can constantly adapt to the shift in cycles. And that's the shift that makes people think that they need to change their strategy, when in fact they need to learn to shift their strategy to the appropriate time frame and the right direction. For instance, if I take this gold and I go from the weekly to the daily, I will be looking at the trend that's currently in this middle section here. And during the time that was forming that trend, there was one type of price behavior in process. The moment that this formed an end of a trend, which we were able to identify right at that time, right at that moment, then the trading strategy shifted automatically. The strategies that were working before people were going to their charts and they're going long, and then after it ended the trend, they try to do the same thing on the same time frame, and it doesn't work because they can't read the chart. So the moment that it ended the trend, a different price behavior began. And because we know that it began, our strategy automatically shifts along with it. And it always does that. It's just always an automatic thing because we know that that's what markets do and we're able to read it. So the moment that ended the trend, we shifted our strategy to a different time frame and to a different direction. That's why we were able to get more profit throughout all of this correction. And see this correction? That was an amazing thing also. And parts of it were very much the exact classic thing that markets have always done before. And we don't always know exactly what it's going to do, but we can observe it, make decisions, observe what happens next, make the next decision. There were so many beautiful, fantastic trades on gold throughout all this time. During the time it was in the uptrend, during the time it was in the correction, which formed downtrends on shorter time frames, and at the time it formed the end of the correction, which we had been stalking for days before it actually happened. Then when it did happen, it was exciting, and it's so easy and fun some of the time. There's still plenty of challenges. But when you can read the market, you definitely have a much higher probability of being able to trade. You have a distinct edge over people who can't read the market. So what's the source of the problem here? The problem happens right at the beginning of our experience in trading. And that's when we start to learn things from trading courses, seminars, and books, from brokers, from videos, and so forth. We are taught that the way to trade is to go to a certain time frame and then enter when certain conditions happen on that time frame. And then we're taught that that's what a trading strategy is. The problem is that's not a trading strategy, certainly not in my opinion. That is complete ignorant nonsense. It's the same as if you had a strategy for driving a car and you wanted to drive a car from Boston to Los Angeles, and your strategy was to get in the car and start driving and make one right turn and then make two left turns, and then to keep repeating that process wherever you go, whatever street you come to. Always make one right turn and then two left turns, and then you'll end up in Los Angeles. You can see how ridiculous that is, and how ridiculous it is to have a strategy where you go to one time frame and enter when certain conditions happen on that time frame. And people think that the way to get better results in trading is to put really cool looking indicators on your charts, some really dope looking software and indicators that will help you to get better results. Okay, so here's exactly how the strategy works. What you want to do is to learn to identify trends and corrections, and then enter at the end of a correction, exit at the end of a trend. Then when you realize that that opens the door for you to be able to enter all trades that could ever happen on any time frame because of the principle of subdivisions, which is the natural scientific fact of financial markets, then you will know that that is the strategy that works on all time frames and it works in all market conditions. And you're beginning to realize that you've been trading with incomplete knowledge or incorrect knowledge. You are going to enjoy a major breakthrough that will open up a whole new level of accuracy and probability in your trading when you become aware of this critical market knowledge. For instance, if this is a trend on gold, if we determine that this is the end of the trend, which we can't fully determine yet, but that really looks like an end of the trend, then there will immediately be a trend in the opposite direction on 1/4 to 1/8 of this time frame. 1/7 of the weekly is the daily. So on the daily or the 12-hour, the 8-hour, in that range, right now, there will start to be a downtrend. And it will form one wave down, even if this is going to keep going up later. It will go all the way down to probably below this low, making your typical classic A of a correction, and it will consist of downtrends, a series of downtrends on the next shorter time frame, approximately 1/4 to 1/8 of the time frame where you see this trend. And if you know that fact, you will always be shifting back and forth. And you don't have to be trading on the week. I don't trade on the weekly, but I apply this knowledge to everything. In fact, what's here is going to tell me how to trade, even if I was going to trade all the way down to 5 minutes. This is telling me how I would trade down there. And if I didn't know this, I would just go down there and trading, and sometimes I would be winning by accident, and sometimes I would be losing because I wouldn't know that the roadmap had been laid out for me on this time frame. The wonderful, beautiful thing about this is that you can see this on all charts. on all time frames. You can just go to any time frame and you should be able to see this, but you must be clear about the basics of wave subdivisions. And really, it's a basic thing that every person on the first day of trading, you can learn this just like you were in kindergarten. It's not difficult. So if you can read the market, you can see right here, this is the gold against the US dollar 8 hour. You can see that is an end of a trend relative to the 8 hour. And that means that right now there's a wave going down, and inside of that wave there will be a downtrend on a time frame shorter than the 8 hour. If I go to a time frame shorter than the 8 hour, say for instance maybe the 1 or 2 hour, you'll be able to see a downtrend. And there it is again. There's that perfectly shaped classic picture of a downtrend on the 1 hour, and here it goes. So it's doing the same thing that it should be doing, and all you have to do is just keep on going with the roadmap. If you know how to read the market, the roadmap on the charts are constantly just showing you where to go, what time frame to go, what direction to enter, and what will be the signal to enter. If you know how to identify an end of a trend or an end of a correction, it's just a series of the same thing over and over again. It could be different time frames, different pairs, but the same principles are always used. Since we can see that subdivisions are scientifically the true nature of financial markets, attempting to trade the markets without putting any emphasis on that knowledge is like trading blind. And it's a surefire way to remain ignorant and confused if you just ignore what is the scientific true nature of the financial markets. So most people are not able to fully crack the code visually and technically based on identifying the end of a trend and the end of a correction, and therefore look for reasons to dismiss it altogether. You will see and probably meet people who seem to be otherwise intelligent and educated, but they will dismiss this, and the reason is because they feel threatened, they feel inadequate, because they weren't able to learn to trade, because no one actually showed them these things. It's not that difficult. So if you relax and just put aside your fears of your self-esteem, I can show you how this works. It's nothing to be ashamed of if you don't know it right now. We all didn't know something that we learned at some point, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it does require a person to have an open mind. So once you see what I'm talking about, you won't feel incompetent anymore, but you'll be able to feel like you mastered trading. You can definitely see the light at the end of the tunnel. A little bit of practice and effort, and you will have it down. Sometimes the only real challenge is believing how simple it can be. Most people believe that trading successfully has to be very complicated, especially if other people aren't able to do it. That's the assumption that people make. Well, it must be very difficult. And you probably need something really complicated like software, because only a computer could figure out how to trade. Those are the kind of assumptions that people make, right? And those are the mistakes that people make. A human being can trade much better than a computer because we can see things. And if we are taught how to read the market, we're going to be much better than any automated trading system. Once you have a series of realizations, you will see that it does not need to be complicated or extremely technical. It's actually relatively simple, but does require a bit of practice and some time. To find out what really works in trading, go to tradingmastermind.com. And what you want to do is sign up for our free professional trading course to get you going in the right direction. Now, I have made another video to take you deeper into this subject, and you can watch that right over here.